I think what is equally exciting with today is that, if you look at, I think, Lindy has and continues to have an amazing career within the marketing space. If you look at big brands within SA and where everybody would want to be, you know that people want to get into FMCG. She started there. They want to get into the financial services because obviously banks have a lot of money. She's been there. And then obviously then connectivity is a big thing. So Vodacom, she's been there. You know, and then and then we know that today it's Friday, TGIF. When you are done, you're gonna have some drinks. So alcohol, she's made us drink. So really, I think it's an individual who will give a view across multiple industries. Passionate marketer, and we are fortunate to have her today here to give her time. And today, I think if you have questions or you want to dial into something that she speaks of, please feel free. This is a chilled space. We're having a conversation. And yeah, thank you so much, Lindy, for availing yourself and making the time. We appreciate you. All right.
Yeah. So I love intimate conversations and intimate. When Nico and I met last week, it's like, and I was like, I just finished a big summit, Africa summit, at the Sandton Convention Center. And my archetype or personality profile is I come across as extremely extroverted. And I think it's because of the 25 years of marketing. When you have to be out there and you have to be on stage. But funnily, just like Nico said, when I go into a big space, I'm like, oh no, please don't go to the bathroom. I'm not here. I'm like, we all have our fears. So that's very much who I am. I'm not going to go through, I'm going to do 5, not case studies, 5 sector discussions. And through that, you'll get a sense of my career. But someone said to me last night, or should I say at 2 o'clock this morning, that my friend, you're a fossil. So that's why I'm like, when you start saying I've been around for 25 years across different industries, but who's going to be promoted? Or who do you think we should recruit? So if you're in the top 4 banks or the top 2 telcos, top 4 insurance companies, top FMCG companies, another test, name the names, I probably have the phone number. It's like, Linz, I'm looking for 2 people. Linz, I'm looking for someone like you, but at this level. Friend, what's happened? I've seen this person is sitting for 4 years. Like, are they going through a slump? So industry people also speak about your greatness out there. And this is why the conversation about the work is only as good as you are, is we also have discussions about great work. And we're like, no, the person behind that work is not the one. We know it. So when you get into, and then I'm going to use this metaphor of parenting. If you have a child, stuff, you know if your kid was the bully on the school ground or not. Or if you're like, no, actually, you've got a hunch. Sometimes you are blindsided, but you've got a hunch. So, and I do mentorship as well. And over the last 3 months, I've actually had a tough conversation with 2 people that I love dearly. And I said to the one person, okay, so if you feel like you were meant to be rated as, there's different ratings, like you meant to be excellent. And they came to me like, I remember I told you this boss of mine, da-di-da-da, they haven't given me a good rating. So I'm going to lose out on my bonus and the potential opportunity to travel. And then I said to this person, I said to her, okay, fantastic, like really great. Nice story. And beyond mentorship, it's almost like, it's more a sisterly love friendship now. Sometimes you mentor someone for so long. You actually stop mentoring someone when you feel like you're not having an impact. Note to self. But you're like, no, actually, okay, can you give me the 5 reasons why you believe you should have got it? And I don't want the body of evidence. The body of evidence is X to 5%, this and that and that. Just like the 5 reasons and the whys behind. And she went, what do you mean? Just tell me. Like, I'm not competing with you and I. Just tell me. And, if you really, are you telling me this because you're complaining or because you want me to call the person that you know, who's the CMO there? And there was a level of silence. And 3 minutes later, I said, I think you and I both need to agree that I probably know why you didn't get the top award, whatever. So go home and do some introspection and reflect on. So you might have done the work, which is X, Y, Z, but there's always the 20% extra, and we used to call it the walk on water effect. So those people have some character traits and are different. I call it different. And when I was younger, we used to say this one is the CEO's favorite. This is the blue-eyed boy. But it was the easy way of saying that actually we think they got it because they didn't deserve it. Now, 25 years later, I would say 90% of them did deserve it. And I'm going to get into the dynamics because we finished 99, 2000. So we were the eras, I'm going to call it the post-apartheid eras, and that in the Unilever territory were 10 of us out of 50 graduates, but 10 black kids that went in. And, they are actually all CMOs in the industry now. And back then, we used to attribute things to black and white, male. Now, the big attribution is male and female. By the way. And then my male friends or male people I mentor was Lou, we're not going to get it because we're male. And then, obviously, my white male people's we're not going to get it because I'm white and I'm male, and so can you help me get into Australia? So those are dynamics and contexts that sit outside of, when we have discussions. But it's important for you guys to understand that at an executive level, we know more than you think we know. It's more than just what you do day to day. It's also about the character traits, and I'm going to call it the walk on water effect. That walk on water effect is special. So don't discount it and don't think what does she expect or what does he expect? That is the stuff that makes the people stand out between the 80 and the 20. So I think I've spoken to this. So why does it matter? Because you are the it. The work is, the work is the it, but you are the it. So when we say we know who did that, if we speak about Corona is now the 5th year, the Corona award has just won the best brand campaign yet again. So the person might come from LATAM, but we if you are curious and interested, we know who the team is and who the agency is that worked on it. And I'm going to quickly pivot to the you to team. What we also know is the reason why it's so easy for us to identify is if it is the person, because we also, industry people talk, agency people talk, client people talk, specialists and consultants will talk. So they will say, XYZ managed this project so well, or this person acknowledged that person in the work. So, and that is why it's so easy to identify. And in marketing, unlike, I'm going to call it consulting, deep consulting, McKinsey and stuff, you can hardly attribute 100% of the success to yourself. And that is also something that we see through, we see through the wool very, very quickly. So you must be careful of also just, claiming everything on your own. Yeah. So Vodacom, I worked for Vodacom, 8 years ago. I left Vodacom in 2018, September 2018, before I joined the bank, but I was there for 5 years, and I went in as chief of staff for the CBU director, and Vodacom went through some changes. Then, only 8-9 years ago, what people don't understand in telco, and this is how fast things change, telco classified as either prepaid or contract. So when I went into Vodacom to work with the chief of staff as his right hand, and it was the first time that they brought in an FMCG, they were bringing FMCG people. They actually went out and recruited 10 people that were from FMCG that didn't work for them, and they took us through a Gibbs course. So 10 females that are non-engineer tech people, and they took us through a course for a year, paid for it, whilst you were working at your old job. So they didn't hire us. And once a quarter, they'd meet with us 10 people, and with the board, and they'd give us a business problem. It was a 4-hour breakfast, and what we didn't know is they were networking. So when I was listening to you guys, I heard titles. It was like I heard, obviously from a business perspective, but it's like, wow, what's special about you? I'm not saying it must go out and sound like, a broken record every time, but it's like when you were saying, no, not me, I was like, actually, how do I introduce myself? I'm like, actually, I am a consumer advocate, the continent's lover, the brand, like that is, so I'm not Lindy, the ex-CEO of WPP, or this, that is important, but it is what is your USP, and understand how that differentiates you. And remember, there is also nothing wrong with sameness, hey? Like someone said, like I'm I'm hustling here and there, and I was like, oh, this is overtraded, and they said, Lindy, you're a marketeer. There's 1 billion people, there's opportunity. Like in sameness, someone else will come in. So when you introduce yourself, so do some work in understanding what is unique about you. And there could be 4 strategists, 4 brand account managers. The titles are all the same. Your titles are all the same, guys. But it's what makes you more unique. And like what makes you stand out authentically, because we can see through the gum. Like, and now it's also easy, like everyone goes and like you can go right up. We're all content creators and stuff, but the reality is we understand when there's hallucination, and we know there's a lot of people hallucinating about their skill and their experience as well. So be careful about how you sell yourself, but understand what you stand for as a brand and what you bring, because the work is you and you are the work. You can't separate yourself from that. So Vodacom, because we also have a lecturer here, so she must know we can connect, and I can help you with the proper case studies, which is like 10 pages long of every case with all the data. So this is 2012, and the insight we got into, and this is how things change, but things are so the same. Amongst the youth team, so I had 3 different jobs in my 5 years there. Chief of staff, then executive for youth. So after we set up segmentation, for 2 years I had to go set up the youth team. And then my last 12 months in there, I looked after the rest of Africa, which for Vodacom is only it's like DRC, Tanzania, Lesotho, and Mozambique. So it's not that big. But in the time that I went to set up the youth segment, the competitive landscape, which was mainly between Telkom, MTN, and Vodacom, as we all know, why would we think they wanted to have a target market that's against the youth? This was then, South Africa only had 51 million people, and now what are we sitting at? 64, hey? 64. Yeah. So at that stage, obviously in South Africa, already 50% of the population was youth. Now we're sitting at a stage where it's like 60 or 61% across the continent. So everyone that we did research against were all targeting the youth. So Telco was, okay, let's go find a space, let's go speak to the youth, let's understand what they're looking for. And then already, guys, like 12, 15 years ago, the youth then were saying, the time is now. But if you think of it, it's an insight and it's a behavior that I think, I don't know who's still Gen Z. Like everyone is probably Gen Z from this side. Yeah. Who's Gen Z? So like our time is now, and the time is now is about, like, don't tell us about tomorrows. We are not the ones who are going to have careers like yourself. You know, everything is short-lived. Like, it's all about short-term incentives. Like, work with us now. So the lesson then was when we did some work with the youth was that actually we discovered that actually you've got to live in the world of cultural fluency with the youth, because, I mean, as an example, okay, that's not the youth. If there's something like, you've got to understand what the trends are and what is happening to be relevant contextually, because else you'll be seen as a yesteryear brand. So work with the target audience. So I'm not going to just focus. So here it was youth, but I'm saying wherever you are, work with and stop being strategists who sit in a boardroom, or now sit and speak to AI, your agents only, and then go back and regurgitate it to clients to say, this is what you need to go out into the market to understand. This is an old slide, and this is what I was cut and pasting this morning, because I was shocked when I was trying to find, and like back then it was hard drives, not everything was in the cloud, and I was like, okay, let's understand what were the top 5 drivers. And this is a 2012 slide of the brands that the youth then, that some of you guys now, or this is what some of you guys then said, which was, we're looking for brands that empower me. I don't think it's any different now, because everyone is like, actually, give me the tools, give me, the ammunition. We're looking for brands that value me, that think I'm important. So, and this also was confirmed by the Sunday Times study then, which was value me, and the brands that came at the top in terms of those attributes in the Sunday Times study was Nike, Samsung, and yeah, there was still BlackBerry then. You're like a Kodak modem there. Yeah. Of course, now there's been an explosion of loyalty and rewards, and everyone is trying to give everything away for free. So it was all about recognize me. So recognize my relationship with you as a brand. So vitality, I think still to this day, but perhaps Checkers, Clicks has fallen off, but everyone has a rewards plan. Yeah, but recognize me was critical. Then there was always a surprise and delight. We are all humans. Everyone wants to be surprised. So like, the surprise and delight on your birthday, or when you walk in now because of tech and APIs, like, actually, this is a discount. Those are the brands that came up in the Sunday Times study then as the brands that surprised and delighted people the most. I remember Tuso Mayema was my research person then. I still to this day, I was like, and he said, baby, boss, maybe it's not part of your repertoire. I was like, what is Durex doing in there? And like, he's like, no. I was like, BMW. I was like, yeah, people that all bought those cars, I think they got, besides the champagne, there were watches or something that you used to get for free. I don't know what the delight was then. Yeah, and then Involve Me. I feel like Involve Me is a whole category on its own now, which is the base of don't speak to me, don't think you understand me, ask me and involve me. The whole world, particularly because 60% of the population is Gen Z. Gen Z people want to be involved. They want to co-create. They don't want to be spoken to. They don't want to be given the answers. So this is just a demonstration of how many years later, same thing, same applications, you can just swap the brands out. So what we did then, back then already with Vodacom is what we now call, like there's macro, micro, nanos. Back then, I mean, people probably don't even know who the person on the left is there because he's a fossil. Danny K. No, if I ask my daughter, she's going to say, but who's that, mommy? Why must I know him? For what? For why? Yeah, so, Danny K, like, it's funny because I used to like his music, but then obviously then him and Mendoza did a lot of stuff in our era, so that also, improved his clout. But we worked with then what we'd call macros now. And with those macros, we worked on how to build Vodacom next level. So you go and you find the people that are trendsetters, which is now like the content creators. Yet we're now in a world, I mean, there was a talk yesterday at Cannes. I haven't downloaded everything yet, but like just what TV was, there's no longer TV and there's no longer billboards. I'm going to say billboards will no longer be so relevant yet outside of Southern Africa, they will still be core. So if you've traveled the continent, you will understand that billboards is the TV, whilst TV for South Africa was the TV and radio, billboards still matter cross-continent. Yeah, so these guys were the macros there, and the youth then said, like, they wanted to be, their ambition then was to be like these guys. But it was all about, beyond the fame, it was just like the trend, and they were the culture trendsetters. So with all of the great work we're doing and Vodacom's budget, let's see, no, it was probably the third largest budget I worked on. The banking is still the biggest, then Smirnoff was still, and then Vodacom's budget is, you've got to know when you're working on a brand that you've got to understand the business of the business. And this is the biggest differentiator. Like, you know, when I was speaking about the person who said to me they think they deserve the award or whatever the rating was, and I was like, oh, okay, so tell me what's happening in the business. And she was like, what do you mean, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, no. Like, coincidentally, I read in the newspaper that there's an operating model change in this banking industry, and the likelihood, I said, I know it doesn't concern you because it's not at your level yet, but the likelihood is there's going to be a fallout at your exco, and they will probably retrench some CMOs or restructure and whatever. And guys, I was not even deep in the work, and it's not even maybe because I wasn't banking, like subconsciously, you know, when you're now reading the financial reports, I had no clue. Touch wood, it's not hit the press yet. I got a call 4 days ago. CMO's out, 5 executives, people will know, 5 executives out, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line suppressed, restructure, and this is like it's F&B. Like I was like, what? So I was like, okay, it's not even announced. And then, yeah. So, but this is just from being curious, understanding the business of the business that you're in, but also understanding the business that you're competing against. So, and this, like, marketing and agency is not just the pretty pictures. And this is the biggest frustration that a lot of us have. And when I say a lot of us, the CMOs or people that I work with, when we discuss, like, actually, where's the talent? Who's where? What, like, who? They often say, like, okay, I need a backbone because actually I love the PR of marketing, so I need someone who's in the work, who's a nerd and loves that. And then they're like, oh, okay, let's go find Alu. And I'm like, actually I heard from this and this one. Actually, this one it's a fly-by-night. They might just have known back then how to do the macros on the Excel, but they can't interpret it. They're going to let you down, friend. These are the real discussions. These are the discussions. You know, when people say, no, the deal was made on the golf course. Yeah. Now he's saying the deal's made at the braai. And now, also, deals are also made in the spa. Like, guys, and the reason why I'm saying this is because my friends, who are all females, I've got males there, but all these female friends are CMOs or managing directors, or they are women. So just like me, we don't play golf. I go to the braai to eat meat. I can't braai, so I don't talk too much at the braai. That's also because I'm drinking something else, and I'm like, don't talk shop, So this is where the discussions are being had. And you think the discussion is only being had when you're having a performance review in room 101 from 10 to 11 on that day. You are being performance watched daily. And this speaks to authenticity. It speaks to knowing. And that's why I'm like, when you introduce yourself, you know truly what you are and what you're working towards and why you're doing it. Because we can see through it. And the ones who often get disappointed are the ones who are not authentically bringing themselves to work, and they are just doing the tick box exercise. But there's also a place for those, by the way. I'll get to that discussion as well. So this is just showing, this is an old slide. This is marketing. Tusa and I went into Shamil Yusuf, and we had 9 slides in to go and explain why we need to launch Vodacom Next Level. And Vodacom Next Level, Vodacom Youth proposition had failed 4 times in the 5 years before us. And so I'm not saying that we were greater than the others. And Melanie, the CMO at Cell C, she was the person, Melanie and George, CEO of Cell C and CMO at Cell C. Like, they can speak to this. They said to me, you are not going to get this approved. Vodacom Next Level will not launch the app, because then it was the era of like, do we need a native app? They're like, it's not going to be approved. You're not going to get the technology buy-in. Like, just stay in your lane. Be the marketeer, because in banking and telco, you are not the core business. Yeah, like FMCG, you are the queen. Like, stop. Even if it's, you only have 1 million rand in FMCG or 30 cents, they will still listen to you. Like, I'm coming to I worked on Albany Bread and Ellis Brown. So when I hear Cremora, I get excited because like people think that, yes, there's a 1 billion, like you have 1.1 billion at banking or 900 million, at Smirnoff or, across the continent at Coke. But the best work has actually been on the smaller brands. So these are the things that show. You need to understand the business. You can't just come in and speak to me about the product. Because if you're just speaking about the product, like, you don't understand, I'm going to say COGS. Like, now the exchange rate has impacted something, and now we suddenly go to discontinue something, and we're going to tell you take out the oil, reduce the oil and the fat in Cremora. That's my personal experience on Ellis Brown, which is why it still hasn't beaten Cremora, because Cremora kept the fat and the oil as it is, and Cremora, and this is 15 years ago, understood that when people do baking and scones, like if the oil and fat comes out, people will not buy it. So even though it's expensive. So if you understand the business of business, you'll understand how to market your brands better. So just a demonstration. So it got approved. So we got the Vodacom Next Level project approved after 5 attempts by great marketeers. Melanie Forbes, and the reason I'm mentioning names because it was like, what did you do? Like, and George Mendes. And George Mendes from South, he's Portuguese. He was like, my girl, now let's make money. Let's make money now that you got it approved. And that's how it is, you're thinking, then the next thing you need to run. So it was going into, and when I say the board, my perspective is still, let me be careful. Some boards are really managed with a tight hand from the CEOs. So it is actually the CEO. So when someone has been in a business for that long, they know every part of the business. And even when they keep quiet, even Simon Crutchley at AVI National Brands, also been the CEO for like 20 years. So a lot of places where you come and you have boards, CEOs, executives that have been there for years, you'll come in and think like you're the new shiny thing and like, but you haven't done the business of understanding the business. And then you will not understand why you're not supported. So step out of just thinking of the product, like this is what I'm doing, but understand the whole ecosystem around the product and get comfortable with numbers. When I say numbers, it's the P&Ls, the things that go into it. And all of us in our life, there's 20% of your job that you don't like. Now with like all the agents that you can build, they can help you do the stuff that you don't like, which is just understanding the numbers, why it matters. And the reason this also becomes very important for agency people. Having just run the agency for like 2 years, a lot of my agency team people will say to me, Papas, why when you went in there, did the client not argue or did the client say, yes, okay, great, let's do it? I can't ignore that some of it is, I call it positional power. But at the same time, I think it's also approach, which is going in and understanding what the client's challenges are. And I did a podcast recently, and some of my team members, they didn't spend a lot of time with me, but a few of them came to me afterwards and said, Sherbet, we never understood that marketing is actually running the business. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, no, in this thing you said that agency people think that the client or the marketing manager or the brand manager, the only thing that they do is that. And you said that only 10 to 20% of the marketing or brand manager's time is actually dealing with the agency. And I said, yes, because the other part is they are actually managing the product. They're actually going to understand how to do the sales proposition. They're actually looking at everything else around the packaging and how things come together. If you come in FMCG marketing is business management. It's not marketing, which is why there's a preference for FMCG people, because that's actually business management versus just marketing. In banking and in telco, those marketing teams are communication strategists, and I call it is a nicer marketing or easier marketing, because you actually have the engineers and the FDs and all the actuaries that are doing the complicated parts. So understand the business of marketing for you to have a bigger and better impact. Standard Bank, yeah. So before the agency, one of the people used to call me Lindy-Lou, one of my most favorite, yeah. So I became the brand, and the brand became me. And it was like it just happened organically, incidentally, I don't even know, but it was with me just being myself. I was coined Lindy-Lou because everything I did was about the blue and how to build the blue and how I showed up. Why I loved working for Standard Bank and why I loved every hard moment was deeply personal. The first bank account I ever had, at like 12 years old, was opened by my dad. And my dad was a Malawian gardener. So the little money that he had in Rivonia, he opened a bank account. So I had an autobank thing, and he's long deceased. So what Standard Bank didn't realize, but my CEO finally realized later on, that the emotional connection I had with doing the work is so deep, was so deep. So when I was showing up every day for every fight, like they to this day, they have no understanding. And the work was hard. It was so hard, but because the relationship was so deep, I didn't realize it was hard until I cracked. And that is something for you to just understand. When you're doing work that you love, or you find a purpose that you connect with a brand, people will automatically see it. And I mean, my then CEO for the retail business, it's so weird. She used to say, no, just give it to Lindy. Guys, there are gazillion engineers and actuaries in the bank. In every exco meeting of 23, there was Lihle, Funega, myself, and all boys, so it's male dominated. They were all deeply introverted. So like this whole room, deeply introverted, quiet, pinstripe suits, only work on Excel sheets. So personality profile archetype here, like just where does Lindy-Lou think she's coming? This is not a Saturday morning, like, So I mean, I wore high heels and stockings not all the time, but like so when you go to Rome, you do as the Romans do. So one of the lessons here is, and it's something I'm teaching my daughter Lebonia as well, is like if you want to convince, and it's influencing strategy. If Nico thinks he's the best braai master, because I'm just like, yeah, isn't it? It's like, and now we're selling meat and whatever. So when you want to influence someone, you've got to go around what their superpower is or what their energy is and whatever. So I was in banking, being the person that I am, which is probably gregarious, like not in the box, and definitely not an actuary or an accountant. and a feminist all the time, especially if you put someone, like the triggers. You take someone and now you're in a room of 99% male all the time who are all telling you, Lindy, you loud. Oh, oh, you're the high pitch. They don't say it to you, but their faces say it. Because you're in marketeers. Well, not all marketeers, actually me, but generally the stereotype. So I showed up authentically and they could feel the belief. The belief was so deeply rooted in a purpose that they didn't understand. They just thought, wow, this girl really just loves her work. And they went with me and my marketing team on an idea. So now when I was going through the internet and I called 4 people the last 3 days, I'm like, how? Yeah, but where's the pink and the yellow card? They went, Lindy-Lou left the building and they made everything blue. You will not see anything yellow, pink, orange, turquoise that stands out anymore. I'm like, where's the advert? They removed it. And so obviously when you work in highly regulated places, you can't leave with anything. So I don't have I was hoping to find, and I'm like, wow. And it was a reminder of the work is informed by the person. And there's a juxtapose to this because actually, the new broom sweeps clean, I don't believe in that. Yes, it does, but the work shouldn't necessarily change because you are there. But what happened in this instance was Standard Bank MyMo. So the MyMo account was launched as a $4.95 account. And Standard Bank, if we do archetypes, there's F&B that was the entrepreneur, Standard Bank, which is the snooty, and this is just an archetype, not saying it is like this, I don't know how it is now, but anyway, is the sophisticated, so if they walk through the door, the sophisticated lady with pearls and stockings and high heels. F&B is the funky entrepreneur, anything goes. Well, actually now NetBank is probably that now. But yeah, I just want to give you, and then ABSA and Standard Bank, very similar, but ABSA is probably the one who tries to be sophisticated, but is hey, we can see, it's not brands. The brands are not right. This is just extrapolating. Sydney and Tlantla would probably kill me if you heard me say that. But it's just when you do personifications, I want to give you context of this. So Standard Bank is all about blue, and everything must just be blue. Standard Bank was built, its heritage, it's 168 years. Its heritage is built on private banking. So though Investec is seen as the private banking guru in the country, and we had this conversation, then Investec only had 100,000 client base. Standard Bank has 12 million client base. So understand the context of your scale and size. So when someone says, oh, this person looks beautiful, and you're like, okay, but of course, this beauty is there's just the one thing. Whereas the person looks beautiful from, remember the resources and the base that you deal with. So with Standard Bank being seen as the biggest private banking base by numbers, it was said that we've got to remember we can't irritate our main base, which is the private banking client, because already we're not as sexy and quiet like what the persona of private banking should be. And I'm using brands here, which is Investec. So you know what someone says, you must behave like that because that's what private banking behaves like, is if you launch anything that is out of character or a maverick, I'm going to call it the maverick brand, it impacts the total brand perception. And the cost or margin that you make on private banking is too important versus what you guys with the product team are wanting to launch is a belly of the nation, blue collar, entry level account. And you would need to get 1 million accounts in the next 2 years, if at all we did that, for the loss of just the few private banking clients. So if you didn't know it, your high banking fees, that is margin. They need that margin to run the bank. Then they need the scale to be able to sustain the tech and everything else in banking. So my Mo account, they're actually, you know what? There's the big bank, the C bank. We know which bank that is. Yeah, the big bank that owns the market. But we do need the base, but we don't know how to how to get the I'm going to call it blue collar or the belly of the nation. So me and the product chief then, his name is Cohen, and it's like, Lou, listen, you know what? Standard Bank has launched twice in the last 15 years. The board will never approve. The same thing, the board will never approve. Now, if you don't know my history, I'm the board will never approve girl. Let's bring the fixer in. Let's go try. I'm like, I like to be left. I'm like, what do you mean? So like, okay, let's do some research. So we do research, we go into the market, and this is taxi ranks, hey guys? I come from FMCG. In FMCG, we go into family homes. We used to sleep like in the rural areas in KZN for the weekend to see how you use the products, because I worked on Dawn when I started. So we needed to understand why they needed Dawn to smell so nice, but it's about the environment. So this is a girl who's like, actually, let's go into, and for banking, this was like, what do you mean? Let's go into the taxi ranks. Let's go and understand what people are doing. So when we say, what are the blue-collar people doing with their money? And so we're going around and we're like, actually, of course. I mean, I come from I used to take 3 or 4 taxis growing up. So they buy magwenya, they buy the popcorn, whatever they're buying at the taxi rank. And so we call it coinage. So coinage is 5 Rand, 10 Rand, 20 Rand type of thing. And so I say to the actuary who's working with me as a product lead, I said, so if we want to launch something, we've got to do it in coinage. And he's like, what do you mean? He didn't understand. And I couldn't explain. I said to him, I just know in FMCG, everything was always 199, 599, 999. The salespeople used to say, you must not break the barrier of whatever the main... and the way you're looking at me, I'm like, in FMCG, it's like you work in the coinage of the money. That was back then. So I've got to catch myself now, because actually now we tap and pay. I don't know if, mass market also tap and pay at taxi ranks and stuff yet. You see how you grow far apart, but coinage matters when you're getting into a taxi. So I said to him, okay, it has to be under 5 Rand or under 10 Rand. And it's like, okay, let's go do research on your assumptions. The bank's got lots of money, lots of research, lots of every township, everything, very cautious, probably 2 million people interviewed. And they said, okay, no, we must launch it because you have actuaries. We must launch this product at 7.34 cents or something. I was like, what? For us to make money in 6 months or 12 months? Smart people, no? Before AI and modeling and whatever. Like those worksheets, I was like, I'd go into the meetings, I'm like, I would be bored within 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, talk to yourselves, because like, that's what you like doing. No, but Lynn, I'm like, And then they're like, no, 7.59, 7. And I said, guys, we can't. It's not a coinage. It's got to be below 5 Rand or below 10 Rand. There's no way changing, because if you're saying this is for people that are laborers, blue collar, it needs to work in. And I said to them, my gut is just telling me this is what we must do. Because at Unilever and at Tiger Brands, this is what happened. On bread, on Dawn, on Surf, like if it was costing us 6 Rand, we didn't sell it at 6 Rand, we'd sell it at 9.99, so we'd make so much more money. But it's not even about, it was about the coinage. If you're going to break the 5 Rand or the 10 Rand, you're leaving money on the table. They were brave enough. They said, okay, fine, let's go. We'll do it. Then they said, okay, we're going to launch a lovely blue card, whatever. With the team, more research. I'm like, blue is seen as sophisticated, snobbish, old-fashioned, long and short. It took us about 7 months to convince. And I had to go to different board members. And my boss would say, okay, now you must go see Leon Barnard. Now you must go see, head of credit was, brain fog now. He left, he went to, it'll come to me. You need to go, and because you're the marketing storyteller, go and convince, because before we go into a board member, you need 60% of the people who are, this is a tactic as well, even in discussions in any meeting, is do not go into the meeting blind and not have aligned with people. So aligning and influencing people is a skill. So I had to go and speak to, I was new to banking. I didn't know. I was intimidated because actuaries and accountants I was like, oh, we're scared of them. And I went and explained to them it must be below 5 Rand, and it has to be bright colored. It must not look like banking. It must be graffiti style, because people must know it mustn't be. The long and short, 7 months of the same story, broken record, nothing new. The presentation from 1 month to the next month, exactly the same. There was no iteration, but this is just staying power of saying, actually, I believe I am the consumer advocate. Remember I said I was like the consumer advocate. I am the advocate, the lawyer who says like, I am going to protect the consumer and say what I know about the consumer based on experience and based on research. The long and short is we launched something called MyMo. MyMo came from My Money. It was another big thing. It's like, I know, let's do this. I'm like, no, My Money, MyMo. And like, they haven't taken it further than that, just in terms of its nuances. And we said, like, the campaign was bank like you've never banked before. The tone of the adverts was also very colloquial, which was very unlike Standard Bank. And it's still, I think, up to now, it's still not like that. Standard Bank has gone back to being the conservative. And within 9 months, we sold 2 million accounts. So it was the biggest innovation and for banking to date. 2 million accounts, which means that we overshot by 50% the financial target that the bank wanted. And what happens is success follows. Then you get incremental budget. And when you do something well, the system starts trusting you. So a lot of the time when people say, they don't believe me, you have no credibility. So I had credibility from all the other industries I came from. Banking didn't give a hoot. They didn't care that I'd been in the industry for 15, 16 years. They're like, I had to do my time in job, and I had to demonstrate some level of success to have some credibility in their industry. So one of the biggest success stories for the bank up to now was launching the 495 account. Sadly to say now, sad for me, doesn't know for them, everything has gone back to blue, so there's none of the neon colors and everything else. And it's still one of the biggest success stories that the bank still speaks of up to date. So the lesson here is in simplicity. Simplicity of understanding and being the advocate for the consumer or the client, which means you must know the data, you must interrogate it and be comfortable with it, so that when you defend it, you're not umming and ahhing in those meetings, because also people hear how you show up. And if you don't have the confidence, but you have the audacity and you're bold, they'll see through it. So really, really understand what you're doing. And always start with the consumer and the client. You're in the jobs because you obviously want to create value or there's a bigger purpose. So always remember why you're doing the work. Second last one. Best of both, Albany, this was in the infancy of my career, Dawn was. 2002, I worked for Tiger Brands, and still one of the best categories I worked on, which is commodity category. And because I love the continent, I like doing work which is within the belly of the nation. There was a big issue, I was sitting in the boardroom and Angela Brocker was my boss then. I was just a senior brand manager then. And the big issue was our brown bread is expiring and brown bread is always coming back. And why are people not eating brown bread? Lou, Lindy, go find out. And I was like, Angela, as black people, we don't like brown bread. And as marketeers, we must also get comfortable with the demographics and descriptions of how we speak. And then she was like, no, but, I said, Ange, we just don't like brown bread. I don't know if it's habit. We grow up with just the bread truck and everyone just sends you for white bread. And it's like, no, come, let's do some research yet again at spending time. And then we found out that actually most of the bread that gets bought is bought for children or for people at home, so to drink it with tea during the day. And kids hate brown bread. They hate whole wheat bread even more because of the bits and the stuff. And like, doing research with kids, because they're so honest, is the best part. And they're like, no. They would rather go hungry, times have changed now, I've got my niece and nephew asking me for sourdough. I'm like, hey, you. I'm like, now you've become LSM A++, Yeah, so things have changed, but essentially it was like kids like white bread, and you're not going to give them anything else. They'll bring the lunch back. But parents, as a parent, you want to do what's right. So you want to give the child fiber, and then the marketing was just always said, like, brown bread is healthy, government is brown bread is healthy, but people didn't understand the science of it, actually. And remember, even to this day, you can see it, I don't really eat bread. I was like, brown bread is still cheaper, eh? Yes, yeah. Yeah, brown bread is still cheaper, but it was not flying. And even in poor communities, not flying, the trucks would come back. And then for me, the lesson here was a curiosity in going to understand why. I call us the 5 W's, the whys. And then it's like, okay, if parents who give them the money want to give them the brown bread, and kids want white bread, like, why not? Like, why not? Like, why not? Why can it not be what it is? And then, the internet, then we did a lot of research, and then we found out in Australia there was something called best of both. So here we were sitting, and I'll call it the dark continent, struggling with something, and there was something, but their best of both was more about high vitamins intake. It's a bit like Future Life. So it wasn't about, so that is like brown and white bread mixed, like you can see it. So the idea of making white bread with all the goodness and wholeness of brown bread was born there, and that's when we launched Best of Both. So when you see Best of Both on shelf, the reason why it's more expensive than other breads, because it's got all of the fiber and vitamin cocktails, which is needed from a health perspective, endorsed by the health department. And yeah, so that was Best of Both, how the idea came about. From good conversation, research, and then I used to work from the Albany factory in Germiston, and all the Tiger Brands people used to be here, used to be so sorry for me because I was the only marketeer. But fortunately, I speak Afrikaans very well. So I was always like our only marketeer in the factory, and Janas was the old gentleman, like bless his soul, I'm sure he's passed on since. I used to go down to the factory floor, and the smell of bread, and he probably made about 2,000 different loaves of Best of Both bread, and like every second day, I'd have to go in and taste it with peanut butter. And it was like, amazing, like now, and we do the spit test. And then it was like, and I promise you, you might not think of it, something with too much fiber is like chewing gum. So I remember like chew, and like no, chew, no. And like me and Janis and some of the other factory guys who used to work on ACE, we'd call it like the 10 o'clock peanut butter. Please come taste with your tea. Please come taste. Because obviously by the time you go to market for research, it needs to be, yeah. So it's one of my favorite experiences, yeah. More recently, yeah, when you have a brand with some swag, yeah. Yeah, some brand with some swag is, so I didn't work on this specifically because I was a CEO looking after the Coca-Cola agency. So WPP OpenX is the agency that looks after Coca-Cola globally. Coca-Cola 4 years ago collapsed 6,000 agencies globally into this entity called OpenX. And on every continent, 9 continents, there's integration of all the WPP agencies that work on Coke. So 2 years ago, two and a half years ago, I left Standard Bank and I came to join the WPP OpenX team. Coca-Cola Atlanta said they were looking for an agency leader that understands the P&L. So the 2 years of the 4 years prior to that, I'm going to call him an ex-colleague now, Miles, who was running the business, but he was pure agency. So his superpower was understanding creative. And in your team of 360 people, remember, everyone has their own speciality. And they were saying that the struggle is that across the continent, they don't have someone in the agency that understands the running of a business. And they were looking for someone, and it was a match made in heaven. And it was just a relief I needed post an exhausting period of work that I loved, but I was just tired from. So then I joined WPP, came to the dark side, the agency side. Yeah, and I can say outside of Smirnoff, when I worked on Smirnoff and Frisco, this last 2 years was the biggest blessing that I've had. I've loved it, and it reminded me why I love marketing. I loved Standard Bank for different reasons, but post working there during COVID and stuff, my soul went to die a little bit. It's like I love the work, but when you embody a brand so much, you forget who you are as a person. And this is something that as people, as marketeers or industry people, I would say you've got to be wary of to understand if you are the brand or the brand is you. You must understand, particularly JSE listed brands can go on without you. So you need to understand where the marriage is. So in you defining yourselves with your titles versus you defining yourselves with what value you bring and what your superpower is how is that transferable to the different industry or a different place. So I got to a point where I was exhausted, and then, as it would be, my angels gifted me an agency's job, which I loved on the biggest brand, like globally. So I'm bringing up this one, my team, and when I say my team, because I wasn't deep in the work, I was busy running operations, did the Share a Coke campaign. I think we all know the Share a Coke campaign, which is, it's the 10th year that it ran, but it started off with just the names. I remember many years there was never Lindy, so I went looking for labels or whatever there was. So the Share a Coke campaign is not a new idea. And this is also a great challenge for us as marketeers, where you think, actually, you must come in and change everything. Dove hasn't changed its idea for the longest of time, neither has Corona. And this campaign specific in terms of Share a Coke hasn't changed its idea, but it's changed the context based on trends and where it's at. The lesson I want to leave you here with is collaboration, which is from Cape to Cairo, from South Africa to Nigeria. So though it's the same campaign, it shows up differently in the naming conventions. And instead of giving the client a brief, working with your partners or clients as a collaborating team is also a superpower. Saying, actually, guys, let's co-create and let's work together. And this campaign was, like, in terms of all the 200 campaigns that the teams did, is a good example of what I call partnership and collaboration, and how you can fix in flight in terms of how things iterate. So when I used to listen to the team and they'd be frustrated because our Ogilvy Nigeria team, guys, there's also cultural context of different countries and different markets. So, and not in any bad way, I say to people, no. Nigerians are a bit like locally, I'm about to say it, our Xhosas here. Yeah, he's stubborn. I was like, Nigerians are tenfold more. So it's just like, so if you don't, they want to be spoken to, and they want to feel like they've come up with ideas. So you need to give them the platform to listen. You need to give them the platform to listen. And then when they've listened, which comes to the understand your audience. I'm not speaking about in Standard Bank, it's like the room of 90% of engineers and actuaries. And here I'm coming all marketing and already what's she saying? And I haven't even said anything. But because you must understand and approach the audience to how the audience archetype is. There is benefit in that. I know Gen Zs will say, no, I've got to be my original self. And you're like, okay, good luck with strike 5. Yeah. So everyone brought something to the campaign to iterate and deliver it as a success. That I'm not going to speak about the millions of engagements, the money, like Coke's scale, and also Coke's confidentiality, just in terms of numbers and things. I can't bring it here. But there is understanding that actually, if something is broken, it's not the end of the world. So fixing in flight is also a superpower. Understanding that actually, okay, this is where we're at. Let's review and reset and continue, because you still know where the North Star is a superpower. And then just adapt, but adapt very quickly. Move with pace, because we're in the era of the world where things are digital. So by this morning, by 12 o'clock, it can be a crisis. And when you're working on brands that are listed or that have to report to government, you don't have time to waste. And a lot of times, I'm not going to say this, the agency people do not understand that. They do not understand the pressures and the demands on the client side about when they say they need something in 3 hours and we're thinking we can only do it in 6 hours. They don't understand the pressures. So it's important for you to collaborate, partner, and understand the context of your client's world. So with this, this is just some of the team members that worked in the South Africa part of it. So, and the lovely thing about agencies, we have freelancers and consultants. So I'm looking here and I'm seeing Gift and Lee, which some people will say, but they're not the core part of agency. We're in the era now where people like insource any speciality. So if you have a speciality out there, there's work for you out there. So the important thing about collaboration, people don't collaborate because they've got egos. And ego is the killer. So as marketeers and people want to say it's my award, or I won it, or I did it, and I did it alone, I want to just guard you against your own ego. Because your own ego is probably what has stopped you from being great. Yeah. I'm not going to do the Smirnoff and Frisco one. So in closing, importantly, always take an outside-in view, not inside, because the data sits inside, and this is what we all spend a lot of time on. So always take an outside-in view. Culture is the canvas. We are now, cultural fluency is it. So when people say that actually, you know what, I'm not that type of marketeer, or I'm a traditional, or this is my focus. I was saying to someone now that they're like, oh no, I don't do romance and I don't do this. And I was like, if you're in South Africa and depending on what brand you're working on and you don't understand what Jonasi is right now. You've got to understand what the polygamist is doing in terms of how it's challenging and what the trends are. So cultural fluency matters. And also, understand the brands that you work in, so you understand the context of the cultural quadrant that you need to be curious about. Because Jonasi is, it's not trending, it's actually, it's part of culture right now. And then just keep it simple and stupid. Simplicity. We overthink a lot of things. And especially now with a lot of AI hallucinations, I think there's human, a lot of us are hallucinating all the time and over-explaining and overthinking our jobs. And I said to someone last night, I was like, I know someone can build an agent, in 30 minutes they can do what you do. And they were like, what? Lou, shouldn't you be the one? Because, I was like, please, man, get over yourself. So, and this is a friend of mine, so it was a love conversation. It wasn't someone I was being mean to. So, simplicity matters. Collaboration, because collaboration will get you to places, especially if you're networking. Someone else, might have a problem that you can add value to. But even in your working relationship, if you're the client, be kind to your agency. If you're the agency, be kind to your client. The master-slave relationship, I hate it. So this is because I pay, your fees, or because I hold the budget, you are the slave and I am the master. No work gets done well through that. And I grew up in an era like that where we used to speak to agencies badly. So like just be human. And then, as I said in the beginning, like curiosity, we can see the lack of curiosity. And that is one of the, I'm going to call it a soft trait, that when we say, actually, this marketeer did good work and this marketeer did great work. And you're like, but I did better than this other one. There is intrinsically something that we can see that this person is curious about life. They're curious about what they're doing for the consumer. And they're curious about where the trend is going and what's next. And if you lack the curiosity, you've got to really understand and be honest with yourself if you're doing an 8 to 5 job, or it's actually a 10 to 5 job. Like, be fair with what you do and what value you bring. And then, like have the audacity to stand out and be different, audacity to protect the client or the consumer, audacity to say the things that need to be said, because you are here to build great brands. And if you're not going to be audacious and bold, then I don't know why we're all in the field of advertising and marketing. So so with the experience across the many industries, Nico said the fossil across telco, FMCG, banking, and now agency, all the lessons repeat itself, guys. So, I was listening to two people like, no, but I need to go. Like, I'm feeling I haven't done this and that. I'm like, okay, first understand what your lessons are. So when you're going to go to the interview for automotive or for banking or for telco, understand your lessons that you're bringing. So sit and do that introspection for yourself. And you can find lessons and learnings by staying in the same field in agency or in client, but being curious and making sure that you upskill yourselves and you understand what context and what's going on, what's happening at Cannes, as an example. If I have to ask you about who won in the PR field, who won in the advertising field, who won in interactive, do you know that data? Do you know? Do you know who the top 5 brands are that won at Lurie's? And if I say to you that demonstrates a lack of curiosity, what would you say to that? So, understand if you're coming to work to just, when people go and study to just get the degree, but they're not going to use the degree, understand the work that you're doing from day to day. Yeah. So, in closing, because there's payoff lines in every industry that I've worked in, so you guys are the warriors, and every industry's Vodacom taught me that actually the time is now. So there was a payoff line. Albany told me about it's okay to be in the best of both worlds. So there's, in the dichotomy, there's good love. Standard Bank, MIMO, it's it's now or never. It's now or never. So get on with it. So know that it's time, you're good. You know what you're doing, you know where you need to go to, so go. And just be your own best person and strive for more. And that's why I'm saying the work is only as good as the person behind it, because your experience and the capabilities that you bring and the curiosity that you're going to reignite if it's not there is what's going to help you be better than what you are right now.